Of course, you know that every Friday, our friends at Local Waste allow us to blow off a little steam by way of a partnership, a sponsorship, if you will. It's a tradition here as we wrap up our broadcast week. We call it Trash Talk. These are all real emails received to talk at ryanjesperson.com, like this one from Lisa, who says, quick note to my neighbor, who's a delightful fella. I can't quite wrap my mind around your reoccurring policy of shoveling during snowfall. You're diligent and responsible, and you're a great guy to live beside. Don't get me wrong, but your shoveling is stressing me out. Don't you realize the work that you're doing is immediately being undone by Mother Nature? The snow is still falling. You have to realize this. For a guy that's so efficient and organized and pragmatic, and I just can't wrap my mind around it. Are you trying to mess with me? Is this all performance art? Like, why don't you wait until the snow stops falling, then shovel your walk like we do? I know it shouldn't drive me nuts, but it does, and I'm hoping you hear this and make just a tiny adjustment so I can go back to spying on other people through my second-floor bedroom window instead of watching you shovel through a snowstorm as I mutter to myself. That from Lisa. Feels good to get it off your chest, Lisa. This one from Scott, who says, I would like to talk about Rex Murphy. I'd like to talk about his column, Why Is It Canada's Duty to Destroy Its Economy and Confederation in the Pursuit of Net Zero? Now, before I start pointing out all the gaping flaws in Rex's logic, it's important to put Rex Murphy into context. By the way, you may not expect this, I love Rex Murphy. I'm a huge Rex Murphy fan. That's one of the surprising things about me. Back to Scott's email. He says he's a partisan hack. He presents himself as the logical right-wing Mr. Spock that tells you how it is, but really, he's only talking to and dealing with right-wing think tank politicians and thus pushing out wedge issue propaganda. Like I said, he's a partisan hack. Now, nowhere in these editorials is there any hint of any data that Mr. Murphy uses to base his opinion on. I believe it's by design. If he provided facts, then the reader would be bogged down and distracted from framing the argument as a culture war, that liberal versus working class Albertans narrative that Rex is trying to push. Scott goes on to say, I think it's funny, by the way, that Rex Murphy shares the same name as the green dinosaur in Toy Story, Rex, because when I read his article, I see his inability to adapt to the future realities of the world, and I would pay good money to see him dress up as Toy Story Rex and do a live reading of his article, but I do fear the joke may be too much on the nose. Signed, PBS. That's Patreon boss Scott. Attaboy. How about this one from Ty, who says, I hope this email finds Real Talkers safe and healthy. I wish the leadership of this province, the so-called Right and Honorable Jason Kenney, would get his head out of his rectum. The sheer physics of how he's managed this feat is rather mind-blowing. His cranium's huge, and not to rip off comedian Mike Myers with his "it's like a watermelon on a toothpick" thing. Has he done some sort of a sick Cirque du Soleil skill as he continues to just ram his head up there? Energy War Room, fail. Justice Minister, fail. Harm reduction, fail. Coal mining, fail. Mass to protect our children, hard fail. In closing, he's clearly unfit to lead. Maybe we can have some kind of UCP bubblegum blowing contest to pick the next leader. You know, pin the tail on a moron. Road apple bopping. Signed, Ty. How about this one from Allison, who says, I've been listening to Real Talk, and one of the points touched on it stirred something within me. It's been brewing through this pandemic. She says, you see, I've long struggled with mental health. Like many millennial women, I went through my adolescence with undiagnosed ADHD. This led to anxiety and depression. Now, when I realized at the age of 21 that something may be wrong, not because of my own healthcare professionals, but rather the internet, the process of accessing mental health resources was beyond ridiculous. It's no wonder that people either give up trying or search more accessible means like drugs or alcohol to cope. Now, to hear the government and Facebook keyboard warriors talk about how mental health is important, these lockdowns are killing us, makes me angry. For the record, we've never been in a lockdown. If it's so important, make it easy. Make it easier for people to get help. Put mental health centers all across the province. Provide subsidies for medication and psychiatric supports. Of course, these cost money, but if mental health is so important, fucking do it. The only reason it's important to this government now is to get people back to work, kids back to school, so the economy keeps moving. So don't come to us now and say that mental health is important to you. People with mental health issues have long been ignored by government and stigmatized by the rest of society. The pandemic has surely brought the issue of mental health to the forefront artificially, and I hope that at some point the government will walk the walk instead of just offering empty platitudes. And then, like a good Canadian, Allison signs off, Thank you. And this one finally from Graham, who heard my interview with Batya Ungar Sargon last week, and he says, Jesperson, what the fuddle-duddle were you doing pretending that a COVID-denied trash fire has a legitimate perspective just because she pretends to be some sort of a leftist instead of being a standard-issue alt-right troll? Would you have booked those Muppets who showed up at Jason Copping's house, the health minister, if one were to claim to be a card-carrying NDPer who just happens to be opposed to public health measures? Does it really matter whether they self-identify as left or center or right when they're fully committed to disinformation no matter which way? That from G, who says he'll keep tuning in no matter what. I love it, G. I love you. I love everybody. Thanks for being here for the conversations we don't always agree on. That's where we find common ground. It's where we reiterate our perspectives or sometimes even change our minds. It's the mandate of Real Talk, and we'll be back doing it again Monday morning. Stay safe this weekend, friends. If you're out at Jasper, maybe I'll see you on the hill at Marmot Basin. We'll talk to you soon.